Hey everybody, it's Matt again, and today we're going to be doing Transformers Armada Thrust. First we'll start off, you should know that there's three different color schemes. I have right here, it's a green color scheme, and it's more cartoon accurate is probably why I have this one. We have a very light green, almost neon green on the wingtips, a dark green with a camo. That right there is his mini-con, and I've already attached him because he doesn't look right without him. That's why he's on this part of the mold. We have gray for the thrusters up front and gray for the thrusters at the back. And he has got a non-see-through gray cockpit lid with this cool little homage to the original thrust right there. On his back, you can see that his afterburners would have the orange right there. There's the mini-con himself that has a firing mechanism up top. That's pretty much his gimmick on the mini-con itself. He's got one more which I probably won't show you, but I'll tell you about up top. And I should tell you the reason that I'm doing this review is I was messing around yesterday and I saw a thrust review, and it was not a very complimentary review of him. And then I heard, so I just kept looking and I saw a whole bunch more thrust. And not a lot of people like this character. I should tell you, I really, really do. In a size comparison, I picked Thrust to compare with Thrust. Thrust in his more traditional colors, I should say. This is Thrust Titanium. Thrust Titanium diecast series, the new line coming out, and he really does size up about even with him in every aspect and size and all that. So yeah, that's your size comparison. This is Thrust's Mini-Con Inferno. I know, he's a Decepticon with an Autobot Inferno. Huh? Yeah, I didn't like the name choice for that one either. But yeah, here is his Mini-Con Inferno. And honestly, he's not my favorite Mini-Con, but he is a very pretty cool Mini-Con. Matches the color scheme of Thrust very well. And let's go ahead and transform him for you. Boom. Boom, just like any other mini-con, very simple. Go ahead and take the backpack off, and that's what I really like about him, is that backpack, which becomes Thrust's gun. And there he is. How cool is that little mini-con right there? You know, but yeah, there you go. A very simple, complicated, but a pretty cool little mini-con. Let's go ahead and bring Thrust back out. And we'll go ahead and put his gun on him, which just kind of attaches to that little hole right there, little missile launcher, and it does fire. Okay, here's where most people start really disliking Thrust, is his robot mode. First off, that right there is part of the robot mode. That kibble on the bottom you can't hide or do anything about. And a lot of people said it looked phallic, whatever, it's just a part. Here goes the second part, these missile things that don't really do anything. They're just kind of on his legs. Third part, his arms have no hands, they're just his thrusters. The fourth part is his gimmick. You pop his mini-cone in there, pull out his wings, and they go round and round. That's Thrust's gimmick. Sorry, it's not very good, but that's his gimmick. Those are what people dislike about it. This is what I personally like about it, and what I personally like about this toy. You have really cool Decepticon logos on his arm, both of his shoulders. His face mold is extremely cartoon accurate, and it's a cone head, which is the way Thrust should be. Let's face it. He's easy to stand, but there is some problems, and his posability is very, very weak. But I kind of just like how he looks different. I like him for all the wrong reasons. Really cool little deluxe figure. Do my bio on Thrust, and I'll do it as in two parts, as in his animated bio and as his Dreamwave Comics bio. First, let's go ahead and do the animated, which is Armada, and I hope all y'all have seen it. It's a great series. Some people don't like it, but I kind of really do. He's like not really an homage to his character G1 style, because he's like this mastermind, you know? He's like this technical warfaring mastermind. He's like a general you bring your troops into, and this is what you're going to do. And like, and the theory of what they talk about is like, he's been in hundreds of battles and won them all. They're all his plans and they win. He introduces tidal wave. He introduces just this totally different way of thinking to the Decepticons. And they're much more feared with Thrust in the mix. He comes in about halfway through this series. But Thrust ain't loyal. Let's say this right here. Thrust ain't loyal. Megatron thinks he's on his side, Starscream thinks he's on his side, Sideways thinks he's on his side, Unicron thinks he's on his side. Thrust is out for Thrust. Thrust wants to lead the Decepticons, period. This is where he differs from his G1. I mean, the original G1 is a coward, and in a lot of ways this Thrust is too. He doesn't really want to get into the fight, he just wants to manipulate the fight. But, like, Thrust G1 wasn't smart. You know, he was okay. This guy is like a fucking genius, you know? So you have this differ, and I think Armada was very good at putting characters that you knew into different roles. As in Starscream, as in Megatron, as in Thrust. Like, these are names that you knew, but they portray them differently. And that really caught on with me personally. I thought that this is a really cool guy. Yes, he's an homage. Yes, he's based on a character, but he's very different in a lot of ways. And that's really, really cool for me personally. So when we're going to go on Thrust, like in the Armada series, at the very end, after all his double dealing, he's stuck on Unicron and it's folding in on him, and he's crying, screaming, asking Megatron for his help, and Megatron was like, you know, you just get yourself out of there. And you come to the conclusion that he gets crushed. You don't actually see it, but you come to that conclusion. Which I think is a pretty cool way of looking at Thrust Armada. Now the other way is the Dreamwave Comics way of looking at Armada. Armada turns into Energon pretty easily. You can make the connection there. And in the cartoon and in the comic books. But in the cartoon, you never see Thrust again. In the Armada Energon comic book, you do. And he actually joins the Autobots when Megatron isn't, you can't find Megatron, you don't know where he is. He joins the Autobots and goes on the fight against Unicron. He fights against Rogues and against Unicron. And it's a very different kind of look at him. And he creates this almost friendship with Hotshot, you know. Things don't work out for him in it, though. He gets beat to dust, beat to hell in one of the battles, and then when Megatron's brought back to life in Optimus Prime's old body, Megatron saves him in this battle, and for some unknown reason. And then he goes back to, just barely makes it back to the Decepticon base, and then Dirge and a couple of the others just pound him like he's nothing. And then Dreamwave kind of gets canceled and it goes out of business, so you really don't know what happens at that point. But on bio style, man, I love Thrust, man. I love what they did with Thrust in the cartoon and in the comic book. And he did not have big roles in the comic book. Let's state this very clearly. He was not featured that much. He was in there, not featured that much, and he was more of a code 2 guy, not really of a strategist in the comic. He was like a fighter, but in the theme of Transformers, his biggest role ever, in my opinion, and you could put G1 in there, you could put what they had him in Beast Metals 2, or Beast Wars 2. This is his biggest role, and I thought he did pretty cool in it. Like, Thrust was a big name, you know? And just a little something for you. In Armada, when the Autobots leave originally for the planet, Optimus Prime yells, "Thrust, you're in charge." Sorry, I just always noticed that. I was like, isn't Thrust a Decepticon? Sorry, just a little background on it where I think maybe the creators of the show should have done a little bit more research, but rock on, man. And that is my bio on good old Thrust.